Well, I'm glad y'all are here. Thank you so much. Carolyn, I love all of your ribbons as decoration. It's really pretty. Um, so how are you guys feeling? Do you feel like outline of a PowerPoint would be helpful? Does that stress you out? I don't know. Sometimes I feel like, ugh. Or would you rather have it be? I mean, we can still cover the points that we were planning on doing, but what would you prefer? Would you like a little bit of a visual PowerPoint or not? Totally up to you. All right,
I
Gina's
see
sort
a few
of
nods.
a little bit. All right, let me share. It's not much, but it was meant to be kind of talking points and just to, I think, help us with remembering too some of the things when we brainstormed that we thought might be useful. And obviously, we're not the experts on everything too. We're really just here to kind of facilitate conversation around how do we grow research that involves kind of students a little bit more. And I'm curious about what you guys are already doing. And, hopefully we each walk away with some kind of things that we could try integrating too into programs we're doing. So I'm going to share what I do have. Okay. So you should be able to see my screen now, at least one of my 2,200 screens that are open. Um, I'm just starting classes today, so feeling a little sidetracked.
Good
Yay.
timing.
Yeah, that's great. So, yeah, I mean, so we'll jump right into it because it helps us with kind of anchoring the conversation and maybe helps with everybody walking away with something important in this kind of next 40 minutes that we have. But can everybody just take a minute to think about a goal that you might want to set for yourself? You might already have one for how you would like to engage students in a little bit more research and work that you're currently doing. And if you are interested in sharing your goal, we're welcome to hear them. You don't have to, but does anybody have something that they would like to kind of offer off the top of their head? I guess another way to frame this is like, what brought you here today? Like, what interested you about the topic? You have plenty of things you could do with your 45 minutes of lunch break. So, anybody?
If you'd rather type too, I'm happy to monitor the chat.
Oh,
I'll
that'd be great.
go. Hi,
Yeah,
thank you for
great.
having
Hey,
me. My
Rebecca.
name's Rebecca. Um, I run a lab at UC Davis, and I recently pivoted to studying more human-animal interaction. I originally was a stress physiologist, so I am currently out at my ranch site, and we have a lot of student interns that help us take care of our animals. And we did our first my new research line of research. We did our first project this summer that we're starting to write up. So my goal for student research is I want them to support our lab's research and mission while also supporting their own career goals and ambitions.
Hmm. That's awesome. Yeah, and you definitely hit like one of my very first points. I wanted to make sure to emphasize that it really, I think, should be considered. I think a lot of times the first thing that comes to mind, particularly if you're a researcher, and I'd put myself in that category, is, okay, what are the things that need to get done? How can I achieve them? We need to divide and conquer. But the flip side of that is, what are they potentially getting out of the experience, and how can I help them with developing their goals too? Because ultimately that helps the research too. It keeps them more engaged, motivated, and potentially around for a longer period of time too, which is always good too. So that's great. Thank you. And congratulations on the switch over. That's exciting. Yeah. Anyone else want to offer any comments on goals they have or um, particular things they'd like to learn or kind of where they're sorry, where they're at. If anybody wants to jump in, I'm going to grab a glass of water really quick. So Cheryl, maybe you can hop in too.
Yeah. I'm curious too, like if you want to share, like if you are trying to involve students or currently working with students, like are they undergrads? Are they younger than that? Are they master's level, PhD?
Right now, mine are mostly undergrad since I'm starting a new project, but I do have master's and PhD student possibilities.
Oh, great. Okay. All gamuts. And Corey shared that she missed the first part of our convo, but she's interested in learning how we might be able to utilize college and university students to track positive outcomes for our program participants. Okay, great.
Mhm. Mhm.
When you say college and university, it sounds like undergrad, maybe grad level. And you have a therapeutic riding program in Northern Ontario. Okay, cool. So it sounds a little bit like program eval and research there, maybe.
Are you interested in um, trying to figure out like a clearer pathway to connecting to a university? I'm not in the chat right now, but she might, she might. Um,
Yeah, good question. I'm not sure.
so, because I think that's
Yeah.
sometimes part of,
She said,
um,
yes, I was going to ask how to get students involved.
yeah, okay. Um, And, I mean, the one thing I will say about that is if you have any local universities, I think it's always a more straightforward path if you reach out to departments that, might have faculty that are aligned in some way with the research. Because if you can get a faculty member on board, they can help with pushing students potentially in that direction. The other thing I've had good luck with is uh, once you sort of establish a connection, maybe with faculty members or department, asking if you can come in to kind of give a brief presentation to maybe like relevant classes on the kind of work that's done, maybe a little bit about equine assisted services, making it educational for students and kind of getting them interested and excited, talking about a little bit about populations that you're interested in working with, because you can, the one path is to rely on faculty to send folks to you, but honestly, we all get pretty busy and it's not going to be at the top of their mind. But connecting to students more directly, maybe through classrooms, if you're allowed to post flyers, that's another option too for being able to connect with a department that might be aligned with some of your mission. For example, say you're doing some work with um, you know, kids with autism, maybe reaching out to like a STEM education program at the university, because that they're going to have students that are really interested in working with those kids. If they have any sort of obviously animal science veterinary medicine programs, that's a logical fit too. You get them with some animal experience, but not necessarily some of the kind of mental health service providing stuff. So either way, there's going to be some training involved, but um, you know, trying to kind of forge that connection so that you have a pipeline of students coming to you is the goal.
Here too at ECU, we have, and I can't remember it's not internship, it's like there's another word for it, but they have these college fairs that we can attend and we can recruit our own interns. Like the communications department has one. I've recruited someone there to do like social media stuff. The other thing that actually they sometimes have their own internal funding to help with research is like if you have an honors program, either
Mhm.
undergrad or master's level. So if you don't have an equine studies program, because like obviously not a ton of universities do, like those are other areas I've had some success finding students.
Mhm. Yeah, for example, like our university has the honors program embedded, and those students have to do a thesis. It's typically a 2 semester experience they're getting credit for, but they can apply for $750 grants for their research projects, which is really helpful. Say they want to, um, just as one example, they want to start learning a little bit more about, who's coming to your program. They could help with developing measures and potentially be able to pay those initial participants for engaging in the project that ends up providing that project leads to their thesis, but also leads to you getting, valuable data for your facility. We also have experiential learning is another credit option that students can do. I've had students work with me that collaborated with the local zoo and, learned how to give like the lynx medication at the zoo. So just kind of really interesting experiences there. A lot of universities have something similar. It might not be called exactly that. Or independent study is a really common one that I will use with students. I have 4 undergraduates working with me this semester doing independent study credit. That's 3 credits during the semester, which equates to 9 hours a week of contact time. Um, so those are all possibilities at the undergraduate level, and then there's even more at the graduate level too, if you're lucky to be near a university that has master's or doctoral programs.
And honestly, you may not even be near one, but you may be able to find one that could help you with data virtually,
Mm-hmm.
um, as a suggestion.
That's true. Especially if you want, like, you gave the great example, Cheryl, of communications, like helping with developing flyers, creating social media accounts, and kind of getting word out through various social media channels. That's something that a marketing, media, communications person would look really great on their CV and probably help your facility out too. So great. It's a good question. Thank you. Um, so I will so we've been talking a little bit about kind of what some of the goals are. Like, does anybody want to talk about what they're currently doing? With, Rebecca, we heard from you. Any others want to share on what roles that they have, what capacities they've worked with students with in the past? What were there some obstacles or barriers you encountered? What were some great things about the experience? Any sort of take-home messages from that?
Hey, I'm going to go ahead and jump in if that's okay.
Yeah.
I walked out of my
Hey, Valerie.
classroom.
Yeah.
I'm teaching high school, so I'm in this and I'm like, oh, I'm not in the right circle, but I'm going to go ahead and jump in anyway because I have been working on my master's and I'm finishing my PhD finally after going part-time, but I've known about horses and
Yay.
humans for 10 years, literally 10 years. And I want that grant. I'm going to get that grant one day.
Awesome.
I'm
I hope you
going to.
do.
Woohoo!
So my wheelhouse is special education, and I'm a high school teacher, and I teach special education, and I'm getting a PhD in public policy and administration. I want to see experiential learning, particularly with horses, for our marginalized populations in the public school system. We all have a 4-H. We all have marginalized populations in every 50 states. So that has been my push. And I developed an organization called Hearts of Steel, EFL, my last name Steel, obviously. And I've gotten high school students to volunteer and have given hours for volunteer participation. I've had them go on to vet school. So that's been kind of fun from that student area. Now, I attend Mississippi State and they do have a vet school and they have a PATH a facility up there. So they work with that. So that's been a good partnership as well. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of jump in there because I know you guys are like university level and I'm down here in the high school. But kind of touch every circle from developing my PhD to working with high school students to seeing success. And I mean, 10 years ago, nobody was doing what I was doing with special needs students, whether that was autism, emotional disability, trauma, suicidal ideologies, like had it all, have touched it all, and had really kept data and had really good success. So I feel like Even with COVID, we were able to add in like science, reading, math. So we kept going because we could stay 6 feet apart and taught people to read on horseback. So that was super fun. So there's got to be a way to get this normalized and operationalized in the public school system. So that's why I came today.
That's fantastic. That's
Awesome.
really great. I love the connections at all sorts of different levels of the educational spectrum too. I think that's great.
Mhm. Thank
And
you.
it's good, like it's good for you because you have more people involved in the program and that helps it run. But it's also good for them to be
Mhm.
engaging with each other too and kind of, those high school kids seeing like meeting college students and spending time with them and seeing I can do that. I could do that. I could do what they're
Mhm.
doing. So I think that's really excellent.
Yep. Thank
I'm
you.
curious about like how much buy-in did you need from your principal at your school for that? Because I think that's like the linchpin to it all.
It is. Actually, administrative support is huge. And so the call, like there's an education classroom grant. And so I called my administrator and I was like, so we're not using the football field. Can I bring my horses? And he was like, still, I'm gonna need a little bit more information for that. But that's kind of what started it all. We have an ag program. And most states probably do have an ag program. However,
Mhm.
I didn't tie into that. I got the classroom grant and I brought the horses up to the field and I rode my horse on the football field and taught these kids to lunge a horse or groom. And we brought in particular our resource kids that don't get out to the general education classroom. I mean, every single teacher was like, they're not going to touch a horse, they're not going to do anything. But yet at the same time, we saw where they were trying to teach a girl to pick up a pencil, which is fine motor skills, and to write, because that's what you have to do in school. And she refused and she hit and she was angry and she wouldn't do it. But I can put a grooming brush in her hand and she's grooming. She's listening to the horse. She's quiet. And the teachers were like, I've never seen her like this. And then we do on one side, we do on the other side. So she worked both sides. And the teacher, so I have that documentation and that really helped. And the administrator, of course, still brought her horses to the football field. And so they would come out and watch, and kids that were bullying each other and were constantly behavior were now, teaching each other about it's okay, they're not going to bite you, da da da. So they were enemies, and now they're teaching each other and supporting each other. We
Mhm.
had a curriculum that we developed too, and we researched different breeds. So they had to do writing, which is English. They had to look at the history of the breed, how it got here, what it's used for, and then they had to give a presentation about it.
That's
So
amazing. That's great.
right. And so we were able to tie in our standards, which are super important, to something that was they could see. I taught Punnett squares by using my paint horse and my bay
Mm.
because Punnett squares, when you put the, codominant is two colors that you see. And when you see brown and white, that's codominant. And the kids still have graduated and still will run into me and say, I still know what a Punnett square is.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
seeing that and feeling it, we've had them do communication exercises where we have them paint each side of the horse, but one person is describing what they're painting, but they can't say what they're painting. And then the other person has to narrate it back, which is communication and listening. So we've done those kinds of exercises, but the administration was really the key to being able to do that because they're scary, they're big and they're scary.
Mm.
And it looks like we're playing. We've played some of the fun things we've done. And I have a student that's going on to vet school that grew up with a nonverbal autistic, and they were in my class, and she worked for me. He was a student that took sessions, nonverbal. After 24 sessions, he starts talking. And my student is like, I've never had a conversation with him. I didn't even know he knew my name. He told his mom at 15 that he loved her. Like that kind of stuff, you can't, it's
Mhm.
experiential and it does take time, but it's super important for all people in that circle to see how this can be developed.
Mhm.
But getting the administration to buy it, and then we did some field trips. We brought the resource classes out, and they had lunch on the grounds with the horses. And all the parents were like, "They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it." Every single one of them did it. People that couldn't speak were leading horses, talking to horses, working together, grooming, like just the smiles and the joy. So it is a calling and it's something I've been eking out because we either do it at the university level or we do it through a therapeutic intervention, and nobody knew what EFL was. And it
Right.
looks normalized for people because the parents of special needs don't get to be, they're parents all the time. They're never off. And for that time, their kid is like everybody else. And we play basketball on horseback. We play frisbee golf on horseback. But it's working those fine motor skills in the brain, working the different sides of the brain and fine motor skills and spatial recognition. So anyway,
It also
um,
sounds like there's a great way to integrate, like, because a lot of programs struggle with once, students or other participants complete the program, like, what do we do with them? How do we keep them
mhm.
engaged? But you have a built-in pathway for being able to do that because they could end up serving as mentors for, like, once they graduate from the program, serving as mentors for younger kids. And that's building a lot of confidence in them too.
It is. I have one student that she started as a volunteer and she actually got licensed in EFL. And I have another one that came to me as a gender identification suicide attempt, and she is now working for me. So
That's awesome.
it's really, really, the applications are broad, but I think they're super important. They're just unknown. We haven't had the research to back up needing it in public school.
Right.
And private pay can be difficult. So,
Yeah.
if you run your organizations, taking insurance is a nightmare. So,
Yeah.
or getting on Medicaid, or it really hasn't covered. Insurance is just now starting to open up to it.
All right, well,
Okay.
collect some data, and I expect that application to be in and getting some funding for
I'm
you.
gonna get it. I'm gonna get it one
It
day.
sounds amazing. So, we're going to run through, Cheryl and I did some brainstorming, trying to sort out like some of the things that we were really considering when we're thinking about how do we incorporate students primarily as kind of uh, volunteers and assistants with a research process. But clearly, Valerie, I think you're giving great examples of, the bigger picture of like programs that involve students too. So, that's a whole other big topic area that is, obviously really important too. In thinking about engaging students, one thing that was driving kind of some of my thinking with this is we know that the majority of programs, certainly that those that have been published in the literature, um, they often rely on volunteer resources. And so some programs have better luck than others with kind of integrating a student component to them. But if you are considering or you do have experience with engaging students, these are some of the things that we think are pretty important to be considering. And the first couple really involve kind of having clear conversation about what your needs are, your needs for your program, and that comes right at the start of kind of hashing out, what the student's role is going to be, and what you need of them. And I think with the first 2 points in discussing needs as well as goals, I think it's really important to recognize that there's always an element of flexibility that we can bring to that conversation. You might go in knowing that you have three main things that you need students to accomplish over the next 3 months or whatever time frame it is. But I think it's always worth listening to what their goals are and what their needs are for the experience, because very likely you're going to be able to help with meshing those together, and it's um, then possible to really achieve both your needs and their needs. But it takes having a clear conversation at the beginning, and then periodic check-ins with them too about how is this going? How is it working for you? What kinds of things are you encountering that's challenging for you? Same thing with the goals, and just being really, really clear on trying to understand what their goals are. Are they wanting to go on to, college or to graduate study? Are they wanting to build their resume? Would they like to, obtain certain research skills? Um, Maybe they want to get experience with doing some qualitative interviewing. That might not have been something that you were thinking was the plan for this particular student, but maybe it's a way to, get you thinking about how you can build in a little bit of that into their training so that they can have that experience and thus be more engaged in the process. Um, and I think, you know, as a, with the conversation, the second piece of this is to really think about an educational part to their training. And I know this might be um, counter to what some programs kind of envision for their volunteers, but I do think a lot of programs really consider how are we building in education, and that could be, obviously horse related skills, but maybe there's also research related piece. Or what I do with my students, just as one example, is we typically have a once a month journal club meeting. Actually, today, instead of a journal article, we're actually discussing a New York Times article on the growing rate of kind of adolescent suicide that's directly connected to AI, chat bots. And, using that as a start point to think about rolling out a new research project this semester that's exploring that topic in greater detail. So, how can we kind of build in educational opportunities for our students that's going to help with keeping them connected? And honestly, it keeps us kind of fresh and engaged with students and other volunteers too. Cheryl, do you have other things to say? I'm going to stop here and see what y'all have to
Um,
say.
I would say, like, I just want to add too is like the presentation piece, like getting your name and your work out there. Like students love, well, not all students, but you can find students who really need to present or want to present. And they also can open up doorways where they have like student presentations that they have to do on campus that now you can go present with them and find more connections, more resources. So that's just another angle of like student needs matching with your needs.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, agreed. It's definitely something that I know at the university level. I have 4 undergrads and 4 graduate students this academic year, and they're clamoring for presentation opportunities and publications. It's still kind of the nature of the academic beast, and so helping to figure out what those targets are going to be early on in the process is useful for them. It lets them know, like, this is the goal that I'm working towards, and helps figure out what's realistic too. You can't just decide that you want to present at all international conferences. That's a pretty difficult thing to do. It'd be lovely just to kind of have endless money and just kind of go wherever you'd like to present, but unfortunately, no. Um,
That's not how it works.
no, no, gosh, darn it. I wish it did. Um, so, and I know in my research lab, we try to balance experiences, making sure that it's not just about the end point of presenting or publishing or writing a grant, but it's also about getting the skills that they need to be professionals. And I think that's really relevant when we're talking about equine assisted service research too, because, realistically, it's not, everybody's jobs to kind of get them published or something, but can you help them with really learning more about the process of collecting questionnaire data, about developing questionnaires and coming up with interesting ideas that lead to questions that get included on surveys? Can they help with developing consent forms and the elements of consent? Can they help with doing qualitative interviews? That it really needs to be a broad conversation about all the different pieces that need to get done, and not just about, you know, taking the student and I know my first research job as an undergrad was literally sitting in an office that had no windows and coding data, for 8 hours a week. And I didn't engage with anybody. I never met any of the participants of the data that I was coding. It's kind of a miracle I ended up in psychology at all because it was really an unpleasant experience. So, and I think
Mhm.
that's something that for me, I try to avoid with students that I'm working with.
I was just thinking too, for Valerie or other people working at like the high school, middle school level, like FFA and 4-H present tons of opportunities for like passion projects that they can learn a little about research, and we're sort of like sculpting them to like think more about that as they're applying for college and master's programs and things like that.
Mhm. This is just the last one of kind of the ideas that we had sort of brainstormed around, but I I don't know why I didn't think about this previously, but last year, it's just this like this lightning bolt hit me of like, why am I trying to keep all of this written down and like or like up on a whiteboard somewhere? And I just switched all of the kind of lab tracking um, of the various research projects happening over to a Google Sheet. And it has been a lifesaver for me and for the research lab. They love it because everything's in one document that they need to be able to look at. All of the Google Docs, links for different manuscripts, etc. Um, Notes on how data coding is doing, creation of new content, etc. Um, so, that doesn't have to be the way you go about doing it, but I do think it's helpful for students when you're working with them that they have kind of a place where they can kind of get a sense of how they're doing with the tasks that they've been assigned. Are they kind of meeting those, or sometimes are they sort of falling behind and not doing kind of the tasks that they were asked to do. And then it comes the end of the semester and they're like, sorry, I didn't get around to it. But this way it allows you to kind of catch things early and try to kind of nudge and work on figuring out where the roadblocks might be. We talked a little bit earlier about recruitment and the different kind of ways to be able to engage, find students to be able to engage in programming. Anybody else have thoughts? We talked some about university level. Obviously, high schools are another great option too. I've struggled a little bit with um, people that have. I've had some experiences in the past with those that like um, kids that have been at barns for a long period of time and kind of think like, I got it, I got it, I got it. I know all of this stuff. Like I know horses, therefore I know everything about equine assisted services. Um, and they're different. I mean, it's great that you know about horses and you know how to ride really well, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that translates to research skills or equine assisted services programming too. So I've learned to make sure to not rely on not fully rely on what students are saying about how they're I'm good, I'm good, I'm good, I got it, I got it, I got it, when maybe they actually, you know, don't have all the skills that they need. Am I saying that like I'm trying to be like nice about it. I don't like being kind of like sideswiped with like, oh, actually, just because you know some things about horses doesn't mean that you know about the relationship between horses and humans and engaging with them. Maybe I'm the only one that's experienced that. What do you guys think?
They're almost a harder population to work with because you have to help them unlearn so much.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not the only one that's had that experience. I mean, I love it because they're coming with a passion for horses, but you're right, they have to kind of like reel it back just a little bit, and
Yeah.
recognize that every barn that they've been at like has very clear ways for how they do things. And so equine assisted services is no different in that regard, that you need to learn the path that's taken at the particular barn you're working at. And then let's see, I guess maybe we can, given the time, we could just spend the last little bit and then just other things you guys want to talk about, but thinking about um, what role is there for us to work on inspiring students, to kind of work on growing their passions or their curiosities, so that we know we don't have a bunch of student research volunteers that are the ones like I was stuck in the windowless lab coding. Valuable information. I could definitely put it on my resume. Yes, I know how to code data. Yay. Um, but maybe not the most inspiring. So, what do you guys think? Do you think about how to inspire your volunteer help, students that you've collaborated in the past? Maybe that's not the right word, but just curious.
I can speak from the student perspective.
Hey, thank you, Madeline.
Yeah, I'm a medical student at Washington State University. I did my undergrad at Wheaton College. Was not involved in research with like EAS during college, but then became involved once I got here to medical school, which I was really surprised about. Finding on a health professions campus work to do with EAS. We're trying to integrate EAL, create an intensive or a program for medical students to help us learn, and even other health profession students to learn soft skills like professionalism,
Excellent.
self-awareness, those kind of things that aren't as emphasized in medical curriculum that probably should be, given the bedside manner of a lot of providers nowadays.
You think?
Yes.
Great.
So from the student perspective of like how to inspire us to be involved, for me, the mentors that I've had, just getting to know me as a person and like understanding because I've always been in the path for in my education of I'm always applying to something once I get out of this. So like in undergrad, I was always going to apply to medical school. In medical school, now I'm applying to residency. So I'm always building a resume. And what's important for me in that resume is that there's a continuous line or a continuous like story that I'm telling about who I am as a person and what's important to me. So my advisor getting to know that like it's really important to me. Like I really like health economics and health policy. So trying to integrate that and build some of those skills through this research part has been like I'm part of uh, dealing with the bureaucracy of Washington State University and trying to get this program off the ground. And so kind of learning about those different levels that there are in academia that translate really well to hospital administration is like one like instance of where she was like, okay, like you're interested in this, like let's put you on this part of it. Or like building surveys, like is really important also for like when you're analyzing like patient satisfaction scores. It's really important to know like where those surveys come from. So helping to learn how to build those so that we can understand how maybe this program will impact the students and then translate that. She just helps me to see like where this translates to my future, which I think has been really helpful compared to other PIs that I've had in the past.
Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting from what you're saying. I hear you saying that the connection with translating to your future, but I also think it sounds like your supervisor has been good with helping you to see like these are the skills and the
Mhm.
values that you're going to take away from these particular experiences, and that allows you, to kind of wrap your head around it more and be able to kind of continue integrating it into that narrative that you want to, have.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's great. And I think you expressed that really well. I think a lot of students can't quite express it that way, but there's that innate desire to understand, like, why are we doing this? Like, is it busy work? Do you just need
Mhm.
help at the farm?
Mhm.
You know, but there are actual skills that you're developing, and these really do help you in the future, even if your patients aren't horses, even if you're not at a
Mhm.
farm, but being able to connect on that kind of that level will help you be a better provider too. So that's cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know they were doing that. That's really interesting.
Super
Yeah.
helpful to hear from your point of view too.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Any others? Any other comments? Cheryl, you want the final
One
word?
thing, I got some of my master's students excited about coming out and helping me set up for some of our research because I told them they could do TikTok videos
Mhm.
and they were really excited about that. So they've been creating some TikTok videos that give off like, what do you call it? Like fun facts about resiliency. We have a program with nursing students and they're working on resiliency and burnout. And started creating some of those. So, you know, you can be a little creative about how you get students involved. Like, yeah, they might have to do more nitty gritty stuff like coding in a windowless room, but they also get to do stuff that they're kind of excited about and they can connect with the horses on a personal level and connect with us. And I think that's sometimes what really motivates them and keeps them moving forward in our field rather than doing this and then moving on.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. I think the social media part can be really fun for them as long as it's got, you know, it's purpose driven. But also, like, the other part that I hear you talking about that's like really unique for students too is like they come out to your farm, you know, they get to spend time with horses. And like my students, that's pretty much all they want to talk about, which is really sweet. Like, when are we going back? You know,
Yeah.
how's Ginger Snap doing? You know, like they want to engage in that way. It makes them feel connected too. So, yeah. All right. Well, I hope we've offered some kind of conversation or at least points to kind of be thinking about as you're working to engage students more, some, you know, options for how to kind of get students out to your facility, ways that they can, I'm sure you can come up with ways that they might be able to be helpful with kind of research programming. But if there's one thing you take away from this, it's that you can afford to have a little bit of back and forth conversation around their goals and needs and your goals and needs, and find, you know, how they mesh together so that everybody can be more successful too. So we very much appreciate you guys sharing your Thursday lunchtime with us, and thanks for being involved in HHRF as well. And yeah, feel free to reach out to either me or Cheryl with any follow-up questions you might have. And yeah, we hope you have a great rest of your day. Pebbles, do you want to say anything else?
No, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for hosting Lunch and Learn, and appreciate everybody's contribution.